Hi, it's Tiffany. Nice to see you. Hopefully this will work okay. I wanted to try to record this so I can put this on my Insta feed as well. So hopefully you can hear me. If you're tuning in, please drop me an emoji or let me know that you can hear me okay or that I can see you. Uh, I like to introduce myself. My name is Tiffany C. Hammer. I am here from my apartment here in Houston, and I run Rock On with Tiffany. And this group is a place to explore everything mystical. I will admit that first and foremost, it's about crystals and healing crystals and why we should use them and the energies that they can bring. But once you start dabbling into that end of the pond, you'll find yourself exploring other avenues, maybe like astrology or numerology or tarot or aromatherapy. And ultimately, it's all about getting to the same ends, and that is for healing ourselves in order to become uh, better aligned, better people, more calm, to heal our wounds so we don't continue to actively inflict or pass them on, and to ultimately move forward for the greater good of all of us here in our collective consciousness. That's my mission anyways, and I'm doing it one crystal at a time, one live energy report at a time. So tonight's live energy report is about the last full moon of the decade, and that is tonight at midnight, 12:12 a.m. EST on 12/12. So there is some really interesting numerology playing here. And if you're like me, you may not believe that there are any coincidences and that everything is in divine timing, which I completely believe, as it has been validated to me over and over again, even when I'm in my most doubtful. So let's get started. So why celebrate the full moon? Why care about the full moon? Why care about the new moon? And that's a question that I get often, especially with my coaching clients. One, on a practical level, it just helps to break things down into manageable chunks of time. Imagining, 2-week period and then another 2-week period can be a bit easier to digest, to see what's in front of you, especially if you are like me, who have been trying to recover from anxiety or depression, where you feel too pulled into the past or too pulled into the future. Lao Tzu, there's a quote about staying present is how you find peace, but living in the past brings depression, and living in the future brings anxiety. So when I look at breaking down the month into a full moon and a new moon, it gives me kind of a nice bookends of thinking, okay, if I can get through 2 weeks, then I can get through it. So on a practical level, it's very Virgo and very organized to be able to just like break my month down into 2 chunks. And for me doing these videos, what is helpful is that this then helps to track what's coming up for my clients. So what am I noticing in patterns with my clients? Because I believe that coaching and crystal healing and really anything in this world is that it's a mirrored experience. So when I have someone sitting in front of me and we're coaching around whatever it is that might be up for that day, that inevitably relates to some part of my journey and what I need to heal or what I have healed. And it is reflected then back at me. Or it's reflected to my clients so that it can be processed externally, as opposed to always being in our head, always being in our heart, or too distracted by one direction or the other of time. So practical level, full moons and new moons are just a great way to set yourself up for measurable data. And for me, it helps to influence what my content for these videos are going to be. Are there specific themes that come up? How do they relate to what the constellation of the full moon or new moon is in? And that's where we can dive even deeper to all these beautiful ways that the universe weaves around us. We have an incredible power to jump into whatever reality that we are projecting or participating in. And there's a great sense of autonomy with that. And that is something that becomes easier to prove and further validated for yourself by paying attention to the different universal cues that you can step into. So let's talk a little bit about what this full moon is. And thank you, Nicole, about the compliments on my tree. Her name is Shofin, and that is an Old Norse goddess who invokes love in the minds of all, of men and women, but I'm using all because it is a postmodern future I'm going for. So this is Shofin. She's a gnome and critter themed tree, and there's crystals tucked in on her branches and underneath her branches. So full moon, why care? So there's a lot of consensus going on, not even consensus. There's a lot of contradicting evidence or contradicting opinions on like, what is the full moon? What is the new moon? And I subscribe to the more ancient pagan beliefs that the full moon is about kind of the release of the cycle because it is at peak fullness. So we can look at either how can we plant our seeds or sow our seeds, or how can we let go of things that are no longer necessary. The full moon is a great time of, if you think of its fullness, of really taking a spotlight and illuminating the darkest parts of our consciousness. And that can be on an individual level or that can be on our collective level. So with this full moon, I'm really feeling its amplification of its bright energy, especially given the fact that it is so close to the winter solstice. And again, there's this 1-2 number play. So it's 12/12 at 12/12, and then the winter solstice is on 12/21. So we're seeing this inversion of pattern between two ends of the spectrum, which goes right into what Gemini is. So Gemini in astrology are the twins, Castor and Pollux. I often see them as kind of the duality, the signposts, the complementing energies of one another. So if it's feminine and masculine, if this duality is also, like I wrote down a couple of different, what's the word I'm looking for? Inverted pairs. So isolation versus connection, muzzled versus screaming, treated versus treating. And I even wrote the opposite of mean isn't nice, it's soft. So with Gemini, the attributes here are, it's the first air sign of the zodiac. So it is quick moving, it is fast. If you think of the zodiac as a calendar between Aries that starts in spring and Pisces that ends at the end of winter, we're looking at each element going through its own journey. So it gets more mature as the different signs of each element continue. So Gemini being the first of the air signs are going to be slightly more immature than Libra and then Aquarius. So Gemini is very impulsive in its conversation because it's just so quick. It's a master communicator because it's able to see both sides and kind of subvert that. It's quick. It can be temperamental. It balances between extremes. It can be predisposed to going to one extreme to the other. And it is about active communication. So Gemini will be the first to tell you that it can be either taking itself not very seriously or saying something that they instantly regret because they didn't process it. It just was like a gust of wind right out of their mouth. And because of that, this full moon has us looking at our own quick expression. Where do we allow ourselves no moments of notice to just express? And in the polarity or duality consciousness that we're currently in here in our third and fourth dimension, we are constantly moving between each side. And it is a and both situation as opposed to an either or. But because of how we've been conditioned, because of generationally how we are brought up, we want definitive answers. We want definitive clarity. It has to pass the smell test. It has to pass all the senses. And that's not always how life works. Sometimes you have a real magnetic attraction to someone and you have no idea why, besides there's just something about their energy that pulls you in. And that might not necessarily pass the smell test. I would hope so. But we want those assurances to be concrete. And in full moon with Gemini, we're not necessarily going to get that extreme solid answer. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. And I'd like to remind you that the future is non-binary. We're already seeing this with the inclusion of they, them as a pronoun in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. we are moving towards accepting gender as somewhere on the spectrum. And that is true with all of our polarities. It doesn't necessarily have to be a hard right wrong. It can be, yeah, mostly right and we have to fix this. Or it can be mostly wrong, but yes, let's give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, or let's give them a little bit of credit where credit is due. We can fill in the gaps of what is needed through better awareness and more consciousness of our own actions and more mindful intention of them. So the future is this non-binary, somewhere in the middle, all shades of gray. It's why with the illustration that I picked for this month, the Gemini aesthetic is black and white, is because it's always somewhere in the depths of those grays and the absorption or all the color of white. So either black being the lack of color because it's all absorbed, or white being the inherent essence of all. So it's all those colors exist, whether you're in the black or the white. So it doesn't matter which side you pick on, it's what's resonating somewhere in the middle there. There is the dynamic relationships that we are exploring. And so with Gemini full moon, we are looking at the sum of its parts. And this can mean looking at and defining what is the antithesis of what you want. Because sometimes it's a lot easier to say what I don't want versus what I do want. And if this is resonating with you, my coaching hat activity is to write down everything you don't want, whether that be in a partner, your job, your relationship, where you're at in life. And then I want you to draw a line down that page, draw a line underneath each one, and then I want you to rewrite it as what you do want. So if you can identify, I don't want a toxic work environment that micromanages what time I arrive and what time I'm allowed to leave every day. Rewriting that would be, I want a job that gives me a schedule that is flexible and doesn't micromanage me, who allows me to have the autonomy to make my own judgments for what is acceptable for starting my day and ending my day. See that subtle difference? It's not even a subtle difference, it's an explicit difference. So this is a great activity for anyone who is in a period in their life where they're really feeling pressed against the wall, backed into a corner, and feeling like there's nowhere to run or what direction to go into. And so writing down what you don't want can be a lot easier to purge out of you. And sometimes it's just saying it out loud or getting it onto the paper that's enough to acknowledge, like, okay, maybe this is where I can control it. This is what I now have awareness that I can take responsibility for. And on the other side, it can just be very illuminating and brightly revealing of what it is you do actually want. So one of the questions that I have with this is, what's been ruffling your feathers? Or is it just the air of change picking up one or two hairs that you're feeling the wind rustling you? Are you reacting or responding? And what is the difference between reaction and response? Great question. Let me share. So reaction is how we instinctively act as a result of external circumstances. So this can be something that we've been conditioned, trained. I mean, we are social animals. So if you have been told, don't do that, 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 and that's your response, then of course that's how you're going to react. It's instinctive at this point. But is there an opportunity to pause and respond in a way that might bring better connection, better understanding, more compassion, more empathy? And this is really an important lesson for all of us to learn when we are dealing with our emotions. Are we reacting to them, or are we responding to what our emotions are telling us? Are we reacting to sadness and indulging in that pint of ice cream and can't stop until I hit the bottom? Or are you responding to your sadness by acknowledging that that's how you feel and it needs to be grieved and expressed and let out of you? So take response versus reaction as a real integral lesson for this Gemini full moon of, are you in reaction or are you in response, or how can you temper that? Let's see, expression being a big loud aspect of this moon. For me, it feels like what wants to be expressed, what is bubbling out of you, what is being expressed in a geyser, or what have you stifled for so long that now you don't even know why you're feeling down. Aside from you're feeling down, maybe it's because it hasn't been expressed or hasn't been allowed to be acknowledged for far too long. And I will be the first to tell you that we, the collective royal we need each and every one of you to be speaking your story, to be telling your truth, to standing up for what you believe in, for expressing your values, so that our collective consciousness can get them out in the open, so that we can wrestle with them, tame them, heal them, acknowledge them, so we can move forward. No one's coming to save you. You can save you by taking awareness to express how you feel. And we can all wrestle through that in a out of control manner. I'm a reforming bottler. I will stuff all my feelings down until that cork gets shaken one too many times and I explode. And I'm a reforming bottler, so I've learned to express earlier and earlier so that carbonation doesn't keep pushing that cork out, where I say things I don't mean, where I take it out on the people closest to me. I want to encourage you to look at your own levels of expression and asking yourself, honestly, can I express myself earlier? And if the answer is always no, that you don't feel like it's safe to express, then that's another zoom out level of, are you in the relationships where you are being properly respected and valued? And that's what brings me to my next point. So this full moon has some challenging aspects or complicating aspects to Saturn, Venus, and Pluto. And with Venus and with Saturn, and even with Pluto, it can be asking us, where are we investing our time and energy in expressing ourselves in our relationships? And is it being respected and valued? So with Saturn, Saturn is the architect planet. It likes us to be autonomous, to be able to do things on our own. It will test you to make sure your foundation is completely solid. Your Saturn return comes around every 27 to 30 years, and that can be a real shake of your foundation of, what are my core values? Do I stand behind them? Are they true for me still? And if they're not, it's going to keep giving you the life lessons until you learn from them. So it's going to keep throwing the same relationships, the same situations over and over, often louder and louder, more obvious and more obvious, until you say, that's enough. I hear you. I see you, universe, and I'm ready to break this pattern. But Saturn wants you to create and actively participate in the life that you want for yourself. And that's something that's real empowering. It's kind of a tiger mom of making sure you've done your homework. And how we work with our Saturn can make this transition easier. But with Gemini here, it's pushing you to the extremes so that you can define what is that spectrum as it relates to you. And the question that I wrote down here that Saturn is asking is, what the fuck is it that you want? What actions have you taken towards making it into existence, to creating it, to manifesting it? It's the end of the decade. It is time to step into the future boldly, brilliantly, and poetically. As winter returns to light, it is time to step into the light. It's time to release what is no longer necessary. And that brings us to Pluto. So Pluto is a generational planet. It takes a little bit longer to get around the sun, and it spends 30 years in each sign. So if that's like 350 years or so it takes to orbit, depending on where we're at in our orbit and where it's in its orbit, but 20 to 30 years in each sign. So it really imprints this generational perspective on each one of us. So if you are in your mid 30s, because I think Pluto was in Scorpio starting in 82 or 83, and I was born in 85, and I know it went to like 94. That sounds right. Anyways, so my generation is Pluto and Scorpio. So we're very comfortable exposing secrets. We have no problem with putting it all out there on the internet. I know how many times that my mom has told me to be careful what I say on the internet because it can always be used against you, which is a very like feminist message that I could unpack at some other time about how that makes you stay silent as opposed to speaking out about the things that are important or of value of you, which is what our current generation is dealing with. So Pluto is in Capricorn for the last 5 years of its cycle. It'll move into Aquarius in 2024. And so Pluto is hanging out in Capricorn right now with Saturn, with Venus, and we have Gemini out here on the other side of it. So Capricorn is very stable. Saturn is comfortable in Saturn is comfortable in Capricorn because it's this ruling planet. But there's a very grounding, intentional, mindful aspect to having so much energy in this earthly sign. And Pluto finishing up its transit here is asking us to go underneath the surface. So if you think of Capricorn being the earth, Pluto wants us to excavate. Pluto is named after the god of the underworld. It is very comfortable hiding out underneath the darker layers of soil as we enter the magma center of the earth. And it is going to be okay with what's in the hidden realms. It's going to be okay with your secrets. It's going to want you to come to terms with your own secrets because he'll collect them otherwise. And when we have so much energy right now and the moon on the opposite side of it, shining brilliantly into Capricorn, it's asking us, are these secrets really worth keeping anymore? Who are they serving? What are your secrets serving? Are they helping you or are they hindering you? Pluto wants you to excavate those parts of your shadow that feel so tethered and rooted that maybe it's time to let that root go and to be recycled. And so Pluto wants to excavate this. It either wants to ask you, do you want to eliminate or transform? And it wants you to ultimately come to terms with that decision so that you can release the attachment to how you expect it to go. And from there, repeat as necessary. It's going to, with Venus in here, it's going to ask you a lot about beauty and your sensual relationships, your own relationship to the earth, whether you're being as kind and as good to it as possible. This generation of babies between 2008 and 2024, while Pluto is in Capricorn, are going to ask us to really shake the foundations of our earth. And we're seeing that now in our collective consciousness with how are we in response to our current climate crisis? How are we digging into this? And I mean, we also see this with crystals, right? Like crystals are from within the earth and they are these brilliant, beautiful minerals that are alive and vibrational and casting light into the depths of earth. And we take them out of the earth and we can learn from them. So I really feel this illumination of possibility with this full moon of being fearless and confronting the things that hold us back. And if that feels overwhelming, as I'm sure it will, I want you to then take your goalposts and ask yourself, what is actionable immediately in front of me? What can I control right here, right now, in my little bubble of safety? What are the steps that I can take that's even a baby step? What acknowledgement can I bring to this so that I can ultimately move forward better aligned, or decide that that's not for me and therefore I can slough off the wasted stress and the wasted energy of the expectations that aren't yours. Bye. Injustice, not working for us anymore. Turning a blind eye to racism, not working for us anymore, because the future is non-binary. It is inherently inclusive and in union. It is unity-based, and it is from the same creator material that makes you, that makes the stars, that makes the earth, that makes all these lovely animals. We are all of the same substance. Most of it's water, some of it's silica, like quartz, but inherently we are all already in union. So how can we take this a step further in looking at what is the opposite of what we are currently experiencing? I was in a coaching program earlier this year, and one of the activities was for us to fearlessly brain dump and express what our ideal future looks like. Like, no holds bar, like pretend like you haven't been told it's not possible. Well, I will tell you that it took me 6 months to actually do this exercise and to feel capable enough to actually dream about the future. Whew, that feels like a big something to admit out loud. It took me 6 months. Like, I have plenty of things that I would love for our future. And I will give you one of the examples that I was afraid to write down. I would love for all of us to go back to a money-based society. I would love for all of us to be doing what we love and to find value and appreciation in each individual enough to allow them to exist and persist and thrive doing what they love. For me, the reason why I couldn't express that out loud was because of the impossibility that feels like. It feels so far off from where we are or where we were even just a couple of months ago. But that's not a dream that I'm willing to let go of until it happens. I also believe that we can be in harmony with the earth. And if we all woke up tomorrow and said that I'm not okay with plastic bags and burning chemicals and plastic, literally all of us, if we woke up tomorrow and was like, nope, I'm done with this, we could change the earth. We could change the trajectory we're on. And because not all of us are waking up every morning with these thoughts of the bigger picture or the zoomed out perspective of how we're all woven together or how we are all one in this world, that means we have to take a step back and look at the things that we do have control over, the things that we can inherently change, which are the things in our lives that make us either closer towards that reality that you want, that might be more loving, more inclusive, and more just, or it is making the active choice to choose to participate in a socio-cultural, economic manner that is exclusive for a very small minority. And with all of this energy and these generational planets making these shifts right now, we're going to change whether or not you're ready right now. But at some point, you will have to be ready for change. And it's going to be a lot easier to make up your mind to respond to it rather than react to it later. Because like I said earlier, these patterns are going to keep coming up. We collectively are going to keep facing these same fucking problems, the same racism, the same sexism, the same patriarchy that is not serving all of us over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, either enslaving and ruining us all, or we fix it and get off the ride. I want off the ride. So I'm saying that it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And I want to be with you in this future that is inclusive for everybody. So take some time at this Gemini full moon tonight and dream about this decade. What do you want left behind here in this decade? Who do you want to come with you? What does this next decade look like for you? Because not only do we have all these planets moving, but we have Jupiter coming into Capricorn to bring its ideal, to magnetize the goodness that Capricorn brings, which is wealth, hard work that is rewarded justly and profitably, that it is stable for everyone. And we have some good luck here if we dream it. So the full moon in Gemini really has this possibility of it's not all bad, let's look at some good. So that means dreaming the goodness with it as well. So take a look at what actions you can do now. If you are upset with your family dynamics, look at what you can influence. Like, I've accepted there are certain things that I can't change. So I'm going to focus on the soft action items that I can invoke change with or evoke change with. And I'm going to let go of the nasty reactive responses that keep division in place. I want to move into an inclusive future. And that means leaving some beautiful tinsel behind to leave some like sparkly breadcrumbs for those who will get there too. What else do I have on here? What have you guys been feeling? I would love to hear your thoughts and what are the feels you got? I will say that a lot of my coaching clients right now have been really feeling like whiplash between extremes, and that is the importance of getting grounded. The best way to get grounded is my favorite 4-count breathing technique. I feel like I mention that quite frequently, which is closing your eyes, inhaling for 4 counts, holding it for 4 counts, and exhaling for 4 counts for a cycle of 4. So for me, I also take this to another alchemical level where I imagine earth for that first cycle, then I imagine air for that second cycle, fire for the third, water for the fourth. We can traverse the burnout and the drowning. So what side are you on? What do you align more with? Because this is something I've been dreaming up today, is we're somewhere between drowning and burning. And I want to hear about what that brings to mind for you. The other aspect to this moon is this duality. So I mentioned this early about the numerology. So we're at 12:12 at 12:12 a.m. And this really reflects this ascension of moving beyond polarity consciousness, beyond 1-2. That makes 3, which is unity, or, you know, the Trinity if you're a Christian. Like, it is all Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Mother, Maiden, Crone. That Trinity is an example of that balance of unity. And with that, I see the principles of Hermeticism coming forward. So as above, so below. What is reflected in its exterior can be seen within the interior. And that brings us to the other Hermetic principle, which is as within, so without, which means the depths of which you know yourself, or the depths in which you can go inward, is the possibility of connection in the external world. And one of the things that I've been channeling and kind of playing with in my own divine consciousness is connecting to a grounded heart centered as opposed to a root earth center based. So I imagine this circuit of like heart, mind, transpersonal, etheric, aura chakras back down, and kind of recycled outward, up, down, outward, up, down, and its reverse of going outside, inward, up to understand and out. Either way, it starts with the heart first. And this has been a really powerful grounding visualization for me because it helps to stay heart-centered and heart-based in my interactions with everything. So take that for what it is, but I feel like this illumination of as within, so without, and vice versa, of everything is in this reflective, equal opposite reaction. So if physics is true, which it is, because we have it proven until proven otherwise, that if everything has an equal and opposite reaction, think of that in your own life. So if your reaction, is it justified in its bigness, or is it too much for what the situation really calls for? Use that perspective to zoom out and kind of observe yourself in this. Crystals that I have been working with and really loving I am still way obsessed with shungite. I feel like because the earth is changing, there's been a higher increase in electromagnetic frequencies. There has been, if you follow the Schumann resonance, there has been huge spikes in gamma ray frequency, which is the highest frequency vibration that our brain can process. We've had a lot of gamma ray energy that's been penetrating our earth atmosphere. Grounding has been really necessary, and because of these changes within the earth, I feel like the shungite and the activation of the light body, because our sun is getting stronger, and not just because of our ozone layer, but because it's switching its own poles, that we're going into solar minimum, that we are feeling this frenetic energy. So being mindful of how you slough it off is important, and shungite has been really helpful in grounding that for me. I even got shungite harmonizers, which has been really helpful in balancing my own light body energy and activating that Merkaba. The other one that I still am obsessed with is black tourmaline. I can't have enough of it on or near me pretty much daily. Black tourmaline is also a great one for all this energetic additional frequencies that we are experiencing, and helping to give it a grounded place to neutralize. Shungite will also neutralize EMFs like black tourmaline, and so they're both just very protective and not constantly overstimulating yourself, whether that's from blue light emissions from technology, or whether that is from the actual sun rays and the magnetic field being slightly elevated at this point in time. In the same vein of that, I've been really drawn to and rocking smoky quartz. And this is my own personal smoky quartz baby. If you have a crystal healing session with me, you'll recognize this. Smoky quartz is really great for increasing patience. So it's a great one to have when you're balancing your checkbook, dealing with, it's great for teachers or mediators, people who are dealing with lots of extremes in either side. Smoky quartz will help to absorb that additional frequency and to help neutralize it. It's also really great for ancestral healing, because I feel like it has a ability, because of its quartz nature, it's higher vibrational, and being able to attune to the frequencies of the patterns that need to be mended. And I use a stitching reference there specifically. And I've been really drawn to it in all its forms, like the smoky citrine, which you can see on my Instagram stories. This one is available. It's $125. It's filled with rainbows. And then this baby is also available. I'm trying to clear out my quartz points. So if you've been looking for one, I'd love to get one in your hands. This one I'm parting with for only $70. And if you go into any crystal shop, you won't find this for less than $125. So 75 for the smaller one and 125 for this girthy big boy, who would probably be closer to $200. So if you're craving some smoky quartz energy, what I love about smoky quartz energy as well is that it works with you. It will really attune to your own vibrational patterns, and to really help smooth out and iron out the wrinkles and slough off whatever is not compatible with your current alchemy. And then finally, I'm still working a lot with shungite. So on a personal level, I'm really feeling that protective third eye channeling energy as well. And there's also manganese in these. So I feel like that also helps just like smooth out some of those crazy pills of what's out there in the world. My final notes for you for tonight is to stay strong and stay confident enough to know that you can face it. Watch what you're invoking or evoking. And that again comes back to response versus reaction. So as you're being ping-ponged between your feelings, between what life is throwing at you right now, take time to take a deep breath and acknowledge, what are you invoking into your life? Are you being mindful of the words that you are expressing? If you're saying it's all shit and disgusting and fat and awful, then that is the reality that you will live in. If, however, you evoke a different reality of, I am happy, content, and at peace in my body and in my life, you will start to see those patterns play out in front of you in a way that you can interact with them. So you are your own witch. So 100% that witch, this bitch, and make this reality what you want. It is the last full moon of the decade to do it, and I want to encourage you to. I'm going to drop in here real quick in the comments my moon magic guide if you want to take some time to harness this ritual. I highly recommend it. And you can also find this in the files tab of this group. So let's see, Lauren, you want me to recap the Gemini full moon vibes? So the attributes of the Gemini full moon is fast moving, quick, gusto, so like a rush of wind, temperamental, because Gemini is the twins. It balances between polarities. It likes to play devil's advocate, not as much as Libra, but it will step right into saying what they don't mean necessarily. And then active communication. Gemini is an expressor. And let's see, is there anything else? I think that's it. I'm going to call it good. I know this was a long one. I love you. I believe in you. I hope that you have a fantastic full moon. We are entering the 12/12 portal. So if you are feeling like this magic, mystical energy, it is real. This portal feels very close to the Gemini meteor showers. So if you are feeling interdimensional, as above, so below, go ahead and get grounded and tap into those frequencies and see what your guides on the starseed variety are sharing with you. If you have questions, go ahead and ask them, and I will be online tonight to mention anything and to fill you in. If you're curious about where Gemini is in your chart, check out cafeastrology.com or astro.com, and you can generate your birth chart. This moon is going to feel a bit intense for earth signs and water signs. So be prepared, be patient, take time, respond. Don't react. Give yourself permission to take time to figure out what you would like to respond to. Okay, I love you. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Much love to y'all. Bye.